Okay, so I just want to start the meeting. First of all, I want to wish everybody, I hope everybody had a great holiday season. And I'm going to start the meeting. I, Antonio Martinez, the president of the governing board, call this regular board meeting of the San Ysidro School District to order at 5 p.m. I would like to ask that all board members mute their devices at this time. Trustees of the San Ysidro School District Board and the public shall participate in this meeting via teleconference. The public may view this meeting by accessing the YouTube link provided on the agenda. Members of the public are welcome to record this meeting using their personal devices. The district will also make an audio recording available upon request to the district office. Prior to roll call, I would like to make clear for the record of this meeting, and it should be reflected in the minutes, that this governing board meeting is conducted pursuant to California Government Code Section 54953 and Governor Newsom's Executive Order N2920. We're going to move on to number 2. So now I will ask Dr. Potter, our superintendent and secretary, to conduct roll call, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Agenda item number 2, roll call. Board member, Mrs. Irene Lopez.
Sorry, present.
Board member, Mr. Humberto Germilan.
Here.
Board clerk, Mrs. Rosalia Palasigue.
Present.
Board vice president, Mr. Rudy Lopez.
Here.
And board president, Mr. Antonio Martinez.
Present. And Dr. Potter, we do have a quorum. So now I would like to request that each board member respond to the following questions. We're going to start with Mr. Humberto Gurmilan. Board member Gurmilan, can you hear me well?
Yes, I can.
Were you able to hear our proceedings on this end until now?
Yes, I can.
Do you have a copy of the agenda for this meeting?
I do, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, board member Gurmilan. Next, I want to ask the questions to board member Irene Lopez. Ms. Lopez, can you hear me well?
Yes, I can, sir.
Were you able to hear proceedings at this end until now?
Yes,
Do you have a copy of the agenda for this meeting?
yes, I do.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez. Next, we'll Ms. Clerk, actually Palasigue, can you hear me well?
Yes, I can.
Were you able to hear proceedings on this end until now?
Yes.
And do you have a copy of the agenda for this meeting?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to move on to VP Rudy Lopez. Can you hear me well?
I can.
Were you able to hear proceedings on this end until now?
I could.
And do you have a copy of the agenda for this meeting?
I do.
Perfect. We're going to move on to the agenda. Before we make a motion or corrections or additions, I would like to request that any board member, if they have any modifications to the agenda, to let us know. I actually do have a couple of items to table, 12.4, 12.5, 12.6, and 12.7 to the regular board meeting. Based on those corrections, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Yes.
A motion. Okay, so we have a motion by, I believe, Vice President Lopez, and then a second by Clerk Palasigue.
Yes, I'll make the second.
Any additional modifications to the agenda? Hearing none, Dr. Potter, will you conduct roll call vote, please?
Thank you, Mr. President. Calling for the roll call vote for agenda item 3, approval of the agenda, beginning with board member Mrs. Irene Lopez.
Yes,
Board member Mr. Humberto Germilan.
Aye.
Board clerk Mrs. Rosalia Palasigue.
Yes.
Board vice president Mr. Rudy Lopez.
Aye.
And board president Mr. Antonio Martinez.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote passes 5-0.
Thank you, Dr. Potter. We're going to move on to number 4, which is public comment, communications on closed session items. Persons who wish to comment on topics included in closed session agenda items are invited to submit comments via email to the following email address on or before Thursday, January 21st at 3 p.m. Public wanting to address the governing board telephonically may submit the public comment request form on or before Thursday, January 21st, 3 p.m. Please limit comments to 300 words or less. All comments submitted will be read aloud during the meeting. Please note all email correspondence related to this meeting will become part of the board minutes. I will now ask our public relations coordinator, Mr. Francisco Mata, if there are any public comments for closed session items.
Good evening, Mr. President, Board, Cabinet, and guests. There are no public comments for closed session at this time, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Mata. So we're going to move on to closed session. I'd like to have a motion to adjourn to closed section and regarding the following items to discuss, which is 5.1 Government Code Section 54957, 5.2 Government Code Section 54957.6, Conference with Labor Negotiators.
So
Do I have
moved.
a motion?
Sorry,
Second.
Mr. President.
Was that you, Mr. Gurmidan?
Yes.
Okay, and do we have a second?
I'll second.
Perfect. We have a motion by Mr. Gurmilan and a second by Mrs. Palasigue. Dr. Potter, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Calling for the roll call vote for agenda to move to closed session, beginning with board member Mrs. Irene Lopez,
Yes.
board member Mr. Humberto Gurmilan,
Aye.
board clerk Mrs. Rosalia Palasigue,
Yes.
board vice president Mr. Rudy Lopez.
Aye.
And board president Mr. Antonio Martinez.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote passes 5-0.
Thank you, Dr. Potter. And on that note, we're going to be recessing to closed session at 5:07 p.m. Thanks, everyone. See you there. Okay, so it's 5:59. I'm seeing Mr. Gurmilan, Mrs. Lopez, Mr. Lopez. I think we're waiting on Dr. Potter. Okay, friends, we're gonna wait just a couple more minutes.
I think we need maybe Miguel or Mr. Lewis, because the screen does say currently in closed session.
I think we're just waiting for Dr. Potter. I don't know if someone can reach out to her. I know that she did text me, but if somebody can reach out to her and let her know that we're about to begin.
Okay, I will, Mr. Martinez.
Thank you, Monica. Oh, there she is. Okay. So I want us to get started. I know it's already 6:03, so we're going to be reconvening into open session from closed session. Going to call this meeting to order at 6:03 p.m. Antonio Martinez, President of the Governing Board, called this regular board meeting of the San Ysidro School District to order. I'd like to ask that all members of the board mute their devices at this time. Trustees of the San Ysidro School District Board and the public shall participate in this meeting via teleconference. The public may view this meeting by accessing the YouTube link provided on the agenda. To listen to this meeting in Spanish, please call 929-260-4585 and enter the access code 151-176-501#. Para escuchar esta junta en español, por favor habla el número 929-260-4585 y ingrese el código de acceso 151-176-501 y el signo de gato. Members of the public are welcome to record this meeting using their own personal devices. The district will also make an audio recording available upon request to the district office. Prior to roll call, I would like to make clear for the record of this meeting that it should be reflected in the minutes that this governing board meeting is conducted pursuant to California Code Section 54953 and Governor Newsom's Executive Order N2920. I will now ask our attorney, Mr. Sanchez, to report out any actions during this time.
Yep, there were no actions to report.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. And Dr. Potter, as our superintendent and secretary of the board, can you please conduct roll call?
Yes, Mr. President. Agenda item number 7, roll call, beginning with Mrs. Irene Lopez
Present.
and Mr. Humberto Gurmilan.
Present.
And I believe our board clerk, Mrs. Rosalia Pelisigue, had to step out. I'm just checking the screen. Mr. President, she wasn't feeling well.
Okay, so the minutes reflect that she was here for closed session, but was not able to attend our open session.
And board vice president, Mr. Rudy Lopez.
Here.
And board president, Mr. Antonio Martinez.
Present.
Mr. President, you have 4, which is a quorum.
Thank you, Dr. Potter. I would now like to request that each board member respond to the following questions. We're going to start out with Mrs. Lopez. Mrs. Lopez, can you hear me well?
Yes, I can.
Were you able to hear our proceedings on this end until now?
Yes.
And do you have a copy of the agenda for this meeting?
Yes, I do.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez. Mr. Gurmilan, can you hear me well?
Yes, I can.
Were you able to hear our proceedings on this end until now?
I can. I could.
Great. Do you have a copy of the agenda for this meeting?
I do.
Thank you, Mr. Gurmilan. Mr. Lopez, can you hear me well?
I can.
Were you able to hear our proceedings on this end until now?
I could.
And do you have a copy of the agenda for this meeting?
I do.
Thank you, everyone. I would now like to request that any board members speak up at this time if the board member has reason to believe that those persons representing themselves to be a board member are not truly so. Okay, hearing no comment, the record should reflect that no board member has expressed doubt that the board members participating by teleconference are not so. We're going to move on to number 8, which is our flag salute. Please join me. In this case, we'll be displaying a picture of the flag on the screen. And I would ask that those in the meeting, including the board members, to please mute themselves to avoid feedback during the salute. And I will lead us in the flag salute. Okay, everyone put your right hand over your heart. And ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're going to move on to number 9, which is public comment, communications on open session items. Persons who want to comment on topics not included on the agenda or comment on agendized topics are invited to submit comments via email on or before Thursday, which was today, the 21st at 3 p.m. Please limit comments to 300 words or less. Public wanting to address the governing board telephonically, which is this is our first meeting doing so, may submit the public comment request form on or before Thursday, which was today, January 21st at 3 p.m. All comments submitted will be read aloud during this meeting. Please note all email correspondence relating to this meeting will become part of the board minutes. I will now ask our public relations coordinator, Mr. Francisco Mata, if there's any public comment at this time.
Good evening again, Mr. President, board, cabinet, and guests. We do not have any telephonic comments, but we do have one written comment, which I will read now. This is from Mr. Senor Manzana, and it's public comment for board meeting. To the San Isidro School Board and Superintendent. Currently, San Isidro is experiencing a severe outbreak of COVID cases. Pushing to open schools sooner The SYSD district is misleadingly referencing the county's lower number of infections rather than using the true infection rates actually in San Isidro. The district plans to open schools when the county averages come down, despite the fact that San Isidro itself might be at dangerous levels. Everyone knows current infection rates are readily available by zip code, so each area can evaluate their own risk. But again, SYSD is willfully ignoring the fact. For perspective, San Diego County's current case infection rate is 60 per 100,000. However, this does not accurately reflect San Isidro. San Isidro's case infection rate is a devastating 221 per 100,000, which is 3 times higher. The district continues to reference the county average, ignoring the fact that San Isidro has consistently been between 3 to 5 times higher. The governor has stated that schools should not open in jurisdictions that have case infection rates higher than 25 per 100,000. The governor made the cutoff point 25 to save lives. San Isidro has 221. San Isidro's case infection rate is over 8 times higher than what the governor considers dangerous. Yet, again, SYSD is ignoring this. When and if SYSD schools open, it should be based on actual infection rates in San Isidro, not a misleading county average. If SYSD continues to use county averages to base reopening and ignoring the actual infection rate in the community they serve, they do so knowingly and are risking lives unnecessarily. Under such circumstances, the district can and should be held accountable for any loss of life or injury due to gross negligence. The San Isidro School District is on notice. That concludes the comments, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Mata. We're going to move on to number 10 items from the board and superintendent. We're first going to start with Mrs. Lopez.
I don't really have very much to say. I haven't been out and about beforehand, so I haven't been out to the businesses that I told I would come back, but I did call them, and I hope to soon be getting answers from them. But I know that some of our staff are back. I just want to, again, be safe and take care. And I know that it's not easy, and I think that news and other things that have come out have really devastated a lot of communities, but also families. And it just hurts to see what's happening. But with this Mr. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, our new president, vice president, I know that they're trying to help in changing all of this. And I pray to God that it does do, good things, but guide them and protect them, that they continue to open the roads and lives of people that are suffering right now. And regarding the vaccine also, I know we've all heard about it, but I just want to wish everybody to take care and take care and be safe. And God willing, hopefully we'll be better and we'll be able to continue. And I know it's not easy. Many things have come down urging us to do this, to do that. And I know that as a team, you're all good. You all are scared. You all are very powerful and you have a lot of knowledge. And together we can do it. So I just want to wish you all to take care and be safe as much as you can. So thank you, everyone. And I know it's not easy. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez. We're going to move on to Mr. Gurmilan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to 2021. Happy New Year to everybody. Just really happy that we're back here meeting and getting to work. I think this year hopefully brings a lot of hope. I know it still seems like we're in 2020, especially with everything that's happened over the past 2-3 weeks already in this new year. But I think a new administration, hopefully vaccines bring a lot of hope. So hopefully everybody's looking forward like that. But I just wanted to thank everybody that participated in the community with all of our events throughout the holidays. I think it was just great to see community members working together, organizations working together to continue to support our community. I thought that was great. And I know it was a very, very different, and it seems like it was like years ago that we were in December, but still just wanted to thank everybody that's been collaborating to continue supporting our community. 'Cause, this whole thing is still going on. And I just wanted to take a second to thank everybody that's been working together, especially here in our district. I think just wanted to remind everybody that on the 26th, we're going to have another town hall meeting regarding the buyer sites. I just wanted to bring that up because I think we need everybody's input. We need everybody's participation if possible. As many of you out there in the community that can, that can show up and participate, at least hearing, the future plans for the site. I'm excited for that, and hopefully we get quite a bit of feedback from everybody out there. I just wanted to briefly, one more thing, share a little bit of information that I think is important for everybody to start considering. I know, first off, thank you to the teachers, to families, to students, to our whole district for working through all the things that we have to work through in this still, health crisis. I'd like us to start thinking about, the future and looking forward. I think, as we know, vaccines are starting to be administered, and some members of our community have been able to receive their vaccine. I just wanted to bring up an important fact or information that I think everybody should know. And the reason why I share it is because I've heard, and there's information out there that there's some hesitation and apprehension about receiving the vaccines. And I just wanted to bring it up because if we don't get between 70 and 80% of the population to receive the vaccine, we're not going to be able to get to a normal way of life anytime soon. This could very well be extended. We certainly don't hope it gets extended throughout the rest of the year, but really need to push this. Need to communicate to our friends, to our family members that the vaccines are safe. So I'm by no means a doctor, but obviously the information's out there from experts. I just talked to my doctor today about it, ask some questions. That's something that I recommend, to talk to your healthcare providers, talk to people that are working in the health industry about the vaccines. Don't believe all the trash that's out there on social media. Don't believe all the conspiracy, trash that's out there. We need to get these vaccines, and we need to get immunizations out there and for everybody. So we need everybody in this district also to just understand that, because we need to get back to the classroom safely. We need to get back to our activities safely. It's not going to happen if we are apprehensive about it. So I am in line already. I talked to my doctor. I told him to call me as soon as they have one for me. So I will be waiting for that call from my doctor's office. I hope everybody out there is doing the same. I know that our healthcare system is swamped with calls, but you know what? You can call and ask. And if you're able to get it, if you're 75 and older, please, do whatever you can to try to get it. If you're 65, I believe the county is going to start that pretty soon, depending on availability of the vaccine. So let's keep an eye out for the vaccines. Let's start getting our immunizations. And that word is hard. And let's try to get back to our regular life as soon as possible, so that we can, continue to serve our students and continue to provide that education that we need to provide, because there's going to be a lot of work ahead. Even after we get the vaccine and everybody's back to their everyday routine. So anyway, just wanted to share that. Just a little bit of a concern. Let's start thinking, forward. Let's start thinking in the future. And I'm just really hopeful for this year. I know we're still going through some struggles, both with the health crisis, with the political situation. A lot of things are happening, but I think, and I'll quote Mr. Bojorquez from one meeting last month or last year, is, we're all going through the storm. Let's continue to go through the storm, hold on to each other, grab a hold of each other, and let's get through it. And we'll get through the storm after it passes, and we'll, hopefully see the light. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gurbilan. We're going to go next with Mr. Lopez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Happy New Year once again to everybody, to our families and to our staff. Thank you again for sticking with us and persevering. Like Mr. Gurbilan said, we're all in this storm together, and thanks for acting as a team. I know that change is in the air, both nationally and here locally, and I think we need to be a district of action, not of words. I've seen recently a lot of jurisdictions that are passing resolutions that are basically statements on, what happened at the Capitol and what happened with the election, and I don't see a whole lot of actions behind that. And I want us to be a district of action. Locally here, both with the city and the county, we have opportunities with new elected officials that we need to team up with, that can definitely help us get through these storms. I want to thank both the newly elected Mayor Todd Gloria and our council member Vivian Moreno, who came out to one of our events just before the holidays to hand out the food and gifts. And again, Mayor Gloria gave his State of the City address recently from the San Isidro Library. And that was basically his commitment to our community. We know our community has been hit hard by the pandemic, both by the disease itself and by, all the different effects from people losing their jobs or people needing childcare and so on and so forth. But we have an opportunity with our newly elected officials to partner to help both our families and our staff members. And I hope that we can commit to being a district of action and moving forward positively. And to end, I'd also like to thank former board president, Mr. Gurmilan, for his peaceful and efficient transition of power. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. So I'm going to go next, everyone. So, I want to echo a lot of what my fellow colleagues, my fellow board members have said so far. The first thing I want to say is I want to congratulate President Joe Biden and Vice President Harris for their inauguration. Thank God it was safe, and more importantly, that they're in a position to make change for the better. Also, echoing Mr. Lopez, congratulations to Mayor Todd Gloria, who's newly elected, as well as U.S. Senator Alex Padilla, who was appointed for that position, the first Latino to be ever hold a position of U.S. Senate. So I just want to congratulate everyone. And on that note, I just want to also thank, month to month, we have these board meetings, and I think it's important for all of us to also thank every staff member who's working, whether it's classified, that are distributing food, to Mr. Lewis and his team who sets up this meeting, to Monica and Miguel for everything they do, to Cynthia, Linda, Dr. Farkas for making everything happen. And despite where we're in right now, in the position that we're in with COVID, that we're functioning as a team and we're moving forward. Dr. Potter, as always, thank you as well. So to our team, let's continue to move forward positively. I know that despite where we're at, despite where we have been, that there's a lot of positive things going forward, especially with the vaccines. I also want to echo Mr. Gurmilan. It's important for people to understand how significant it is to get your vaccine. And I always use this comparison because if you compare, the annual flu shot that people regularly get, well, when you look at statistics, there is 40 to 50% chance that that flu shot that you take every year is effective. When you compare that to this vaccine, whether it's Moderna or Pfizer, it's more than 90%. In fact, I think Pfizer is 96% effective. So just when you look at those numbers, I think it's not an option to not get your vaccine. You have to get it. And more importantly, that's the way we're going to come out of this pandemic, when we take a proactive approach to get our vaccines. Today's a very important day. We're going to be discussing the governor's proposal from his budget and how that impacts our school districts. So I just want to let everybody know that we're very eager to look at how that benefits our school district and what we need to do to ensure that our school district, despite obviously the pandemic, that we're moving forward positively. Also, I want to echo Mr. Gurmilan, who's mentioned next week's meeting on Tuesday. It's a meeting that we're going to have related to the Byers Site School. I want to urge everyone who's listening, it's significant for you to attend or at least submit your comment, because essentially that's what's really going to help shape our decision-making process, and more importantly, decide what we're going to do with that site. And on that note, I want to close out by wishing everybody again a happy new year, and let's move forward together. And I want to pass it to Dr. Potter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll also share a very happy new year to our community and everyone that we serve, our students and families and our staff and our team here in San Ysidro School District. I never thought that I would hope for a year to come more quickly than 2021. 2020 was a very difficult year, and knowing that now we have 2021 and we kick the school year off with a statewide program called Vaccinate All 58. And the statewide program has a goal of having access for everyone to the COVID vaccine by summer of 2021. Knowing that here in San Diego, this fantastic news that 2 weeks ago, we were able to open a vaccine superstation at Petco Park. And that vaccine superstation is vaccinating up to 5,000 individuals per day. They're currently vaccinating any individual in phase or tier 1A, which are primarily our healthcare workers and also those individuals who reside in an assisted living home. We were so blessed because 3 of our very own employees in San Ysidro School District qualified for phase 1A and have already been vaccinated. So the vaccine has already started to flow to our school district. I'm feeling very grateful for that. And I'm hopeful looking at those numbers and the fact that today they opened a Chula Vista superstation for vaccines over in the old Sears store. I grew up shopping at that Sears store off of Broadway in Chula Vista. And so really grateful that that opened today. That also will be able to serve another 5,000 individuals to be vaccinated per day, which means that with just those 2 stations alone, we might have the opportunity to have phase 1B come sooner. And the significance of phase 1B for vaccines is that everyone in education, all of the staff members in education will then have access to the vaccine as well. Looking at those numbers, I'm projecting that phase 1B for vaccinations will hit this February, and we might begin to be able to make appointments as early as the next few weeks for our staff members to have access to it. The last piece of possible good news is that the County Health Department has recognized that San Ysidro has been hit very hard with COVID countywide of all the zip codes. Indeed, our zip code is one that has the greatest need. We've been strongly advocating as a school district for support from the county and from the state health departments because of that reality that we've been living in. The first thing that they gave to us were COVID testing centers, and San Ysidro is the only zip code that has not 1 but 2 free COVID testing centers. And we also were one of the first districts in the county to have access to every other month testing for our staff. So any staff member that's coming on campus, they're able to COVID test already. We've been testing for a couple months now, thanks to the coordination of Dr. Farkas and the County Health Department, setting up that schedule with the County Office of Education. We're eager now, and what we've put in a request for next for our school district and for our community is it would be wonderful if South San Diego could have yet another superstation for the vaccine. And that's the next hope and layer, protective layer that we're reaching out and trying to achieve for our community. So please stay posted. Happy New Year. And indeed, we hope for 2021 to bring light into all of our lives so that we can restore all that we once had before this COVID pandemic hit. Thank you so much, everyone. Next week, Tuesday, January 26th, is that long-range master facility plan, special board meeting, town hall meeting. Everyone's invited. Please join us. It's at 5 o'clock. It is being held virtually. We sent out lots of flyers thanks to our CBO, Marilyn Adriansen, and her team on the business team. Thank you so much for advertising that event as well. With that said, Mr. President, Thank you so much for your time and welcome back, everybody, to 2021.
Thank you, Dr. Potter. Everyone, we're going to move on to conference sessions. We're going to go to the first one, which is 11.1, the governor's proposed state budget, federal stimulus funds impact to San Ysidro School District, and 2021-2022 budget reduction plan. And CBO, our fabulous CBO, Marilyn Adriansen, will be giving us a presentation on that.
Oh, thank you, Board President Martinez. Good evening, Board President Mr. Martinez, members of the board, Dr. Potter, and community. Mr. Miguel? Okay, thank you. On January 8th, 2021, Governor Newsom released his proposal for the 21-22 state budget and K-12 education. Tonight, the business department will highlight some of the key components of the budget proposal and its impact on the district's budget. Governor Newsom recognizes the need to assist the state and its residents recover from the health and economic crisis of COVID-19. The proposal addresses investments to protect small businesses, a jobs creation package, and equitable access to housing, healthcare, and education for Californians. Due to the increase in state revenues in Proposition 98, the governor's proposal allows for deep investments to help educational leaders with instruction and learning in a COVID-19 environment. The proposal emphasizes the need to get young and vulnerable students back in the classroom. In addition, the proposal allows the governor to pay off a significant amount of deferrals. This chart here shows Proposition 98 funding over time. So back in June, when the governor adopted the budget, the 2021 Proposition 98 amount was roughly $70.9 million. So as you can see, it's up $11.9 billion from the June adopted budget in 2021. And then the 2021 proposal includes increase to $85.8 billion in Proposition 98 funding. It's the COLA, 21-22 compounded COLA of 3.84%. So in 2021, the statutory COLA was 2.31%. And 21-22, 1.50%. We are not receiving the COLA for 2021 in this fiscal year. It has been pushed over to 21-22 and is now a compounded amount of 3.84%. 1.50% COLA will be applied to special education and other categorical programs. So the other categorical programs and special education will not receive the 2.31%. They will only receive a COLA of 1.50%. And these are the rates, proposed rates for 21-22 once you apply the 3.84 compounded COLA for 21-22. So these are the rates. Grade span kindergarten to third grade and fourth grade through sixth grade. Kindergarten to third grade will increase to $8,830 per ADA, and fourth grade to sixth grade, $118 per ADA. And then the chart right below it are the rates for supplemental concentration grants as well. So once we apply the factors into our LCFF calculator, this is what the projections look like. So for first interim, our projected LCFF for 21-22 was projected at $45.5 million. And now with the governor's proposed budget, it has increased to $47.2 million. And this is building in the 3.84% compounded COLA. So the difference is an increase of $1.74 million to LCFF. Also in the governor's proposal is the buy down or the pay down of the deferrals that were scheduled for February 2022 through May 2022. This will not impact the deferral schedule for this fiscal year, February 2021 through May 2021. So the deferrals that are scheduled for this year will still happen. And for our district, that's about $8 million. And I have the next slide will show the impact to our district. So this is our district's 2021 cash deferral chart. So in February, we anticipate a cash deferral amount of $1.17 million. And we plan to borrow from our TTF, our temporary transfer of funds, to cover that loss or that deferral. And then March through May 2021, $1.81 million for each month. And we'll also draw from our TTF to cover the deferral. And then in June 2021, will be deferred to July, across fiscal year deferral, $1.67 million. We anticipate borrowing from our TTF or interfund borrowing. So total cash deferral for our district is $8.27 million in this fiscal year, 2021. So prior to the governor's budget proposal, our projected cash deferral from February 2022 through June 2022 was about $9 million. And now with the projected buy down of cash deferrals, we will only see a cash deferral from June through July in the amount of roughly $2.4 million. So special education will also receive a 1.5% COLA. The increase will be to the base funding rate, currently at $624 per ADA, increase to $634.38 per ADA, and that's an increase of roughly $39,000. It's a slight increase. We will also see a one-time allocation for our preschoolers with disabilities. The rate is $5,900 per preschooler with disabilities or special ed preschool students. That's roughly $350,000 for our district. The language indicates that the funding must be used for evidence-based services that directly support the school readiness of infants, toddlers, and preschoolers with the targeted focus on providing services in inclusive settings. So it's a little bit more restricted from the 1920 allocation that they allocated to districts. In 1920, the district had more flexibility for this allocation. For 21-22, it's a little bit more restricted. So on December 27, 2020, the federal stimulus package, the new federal stimulus funds were passed. We're so grateful for the stimulus package. All districts we've been waiting for this package to pass. And we're so appreciative. It helps us tremendously. So the amount was $2.3 trillion, $82 billion for education. And also in the bill, there was an extension of the Coronavirus Relief Fund, which is one of the allocations in the CARES Act. And the expenditure deadline has been pushed to December 31st, 2021. So these are the three different allocations under the new stimulus package. So we have ESSER, which is considered ESSER number 2, because the this current year's 2021 package is ESSER number 1. So it's now ESSER number 2. The next allocation is higher education, which doesn't apply to us. And then the GEAR funds will primarily go to private schools, and very little to K-12 education. So right now, what we know now is the ESSER allocation, number 2, which one-time funds of $4.69 million, which is about 4 times as much that we received this fiscal year. So our allocation for this fiscal year was about 1.1 million. And now it's 4.69 million. It's a lot more flexibility than the other allocations in the CARES Act funds. So this, the funding for reopening schools, Governor is calling for at least $2 billion in one-time Proposition 98 funds for the safe reopening and operation of in-person instruction for K-12 students. So the initial allocation is $450 per ADA, with an opening date of TK to second grade of February 16th or 15th, depending where the holiday lands, of 2021. And then third grade to sixth grade of March 15th, 2021. But districts must submit a COVID-19 safety plan to San Diego County Office Education by February 1st, 2021. So just the initial base grant amount without the additional grant allocations is roughly $1.9 million to our district one-time funds.
And Marilyn, I just want to emphasize going back on that slide, because from my understanding, and if you want to clarify this as well, and I'm sure you will as well, that the reopening plan the governor proposes is just that, essentially a proposal. And the logistics, as we have discussed, is obviously, perhaps to say not thought out.
Right.
Right. I mean, hopefully I don't offend anybody, but ultimately I do know that, and we all know that there are budget hearings with the state legislators that are essentially addressing this issue, because this is essentially a proposal. And I think ultimately the reason I say this, at least from my end, and I'm sure the other board members agree, the most important thing above everything else is safety.
Right.
That we don't want to put one person, one student, one staff member, one community member in a position where they might get sick or they're not safe. And ultimately, when I look at this particular slide, I essentially just see a proposal from the governor that could, and I'd say 99.9% chance will be changed to meet a more realistic approach on reopening of schools.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Martinez.
I would echo Mr. President's comments and sentiments that our district certainly is advocating for reasonable timelines for reopening, and also really digging deep into the details and the requirements to make sure that there's something that are well thought through in terms of educational policy. So we will work with Mr. President and our board members to communicate those issues to our legislative representatives.
In addition, the governor proposes a one-time allocation of $4.6 billion to address learning loss. So the students would include our low-income English learners, foster and homeless youth students. The funds would be used towards expanding learning time or summer school and targeted strategies and academic intervention to address learning loss. So the details have not been provided at this time, but we will look out for them for this $4.6 billion. School Services of California provided a financial projection dartboard. We usually use this dartboard in building our LCFF dollar amounts. So the very last row that says SSC estimated statutory COLA will be built in, will most likely be built into our second interim report. And I have a future slide where I show our multi-year projection where I've implemented the rates. So for 2021, we have a 0% COLA, 21-22, 3.84%, which is compounded, 22-23, 1.28%, and 22-23-24, 1.61%. So on my multi-year, I've built a 4-year projection plan so we can kind of get a better look of our finances. And these are the projected Calpers and Calstrs pension rates. So as you can see, they start to increase. We did get a reduction in our PERS and STRS rates for this fiscal year, but for 21-22, they will begin moving forward to revert back to the original rates prior to COVID-19. This is our estimated Calstrs and Calpers pension cost. I would like to highlight the yellow cells. As you can see, beginning in 21-22, we will see an increase of $320,700, and then the larger increase in 22-23 of about $900,000. Almost $1 million actually. So the projected combined increase beginning from fiscal year 13-14 to 2025 is about $5.3 million, which triples the cost from when we began in 13-14. So here is our 4-year multi-year projection, and it's based on the governor's budget proposal. I've built in the COLA rates that we saw on the dartboard. What's also built in are portions of the new ESSER number 2 stimulus funds. So not the entire amount. The entire amount is built into the revenue, but we're still building the budget plan for the ESSER number 2. So only portions of ESSER number 2 are built into the expense budget. So 2021 remains the same. 21-22 remains the same. 22-23 is the 1.28% COLA. So what we do here is we start with our beginning balance. We add in our revenues, subtract our expense. So the net increase, which is the orange row of a negative 1.68 million, you can see that in the second to the third column. It's a negative 1.68 million. So that's considered deficit spending. So once you subtract that from our ending fund balance, we're left with the ending fund balance of 5.348 million. And then we have our restricted reserves and assignments, and then our reserve for economic uncertainties of 3%. So all 4 years we are positive budget. So then we take that beginning fund balance, add in 23-24, we add in our revenues, subtract our expense, and then we see in 23-24 fiscal year a deficit spending of negative 2.64 million. We still meeting the reserve even on 4 years out, but you could the orange row, you can begin to see deficit spending beginning in 22-23, and then over time, if the deficit spending is not addressed, it becomes a structural deficit. You have any questions on this slide?
Any questions, team? You know, the only thing, and I don't know if you're done yet, Marilyn, but I do have to ask, and I'll bring it up after your presentation. In fact, I'll just let you finish. That way, maybe we'll hold the questions until then.
Okay, thank you. So the next slide. These are the top financial issues that are impacting our budget. So the COVID-induced recession, it's anywhere from $2 million to $3 million, as you can see in our multi-year projection 4 years out, which begins the deficit spending the 3rd year out in 22-23. So it could be anywhere from $2 million to $3 million. We have our cash deferrals, which I've mentioned earlier in an earlier slide. The expiration of our CARES and ESSER funds. So we have the one for this year of $6.3 million. And then for next year, $4.69 million. And the $4.69 million will expire in September of 2023. Number 4 is our projected declining enrollment. So we did recognize a loss of 60 students in this school year. Projection of 100 students for 21-22 of student declining enrollment. And over time, in total from 2017 to 2020, we've lost 322 students. And then for our preschool, we are experiencing a decline in students of 97 students in preschool. Number 5 is the overstated ADA, which the district is on annual payment plan, which is hitting our general fund budget as well of $700,000. So that's the overstatement from 15-16 and 16-17. It's a total debt of $3.93 million that we owe to the state. Mentioned in a previous slide, the Calstrs and Calpers pension liability. So we have the 2 amounts there. A possible contribution to the cafeteria fund, anywhere from $150,000 to $250,000. It's just unknown at this time. We don't know the impacts of COVID just yet. And then our projected contribution to special education, anywhere from $6.4 to $6.7 million. And we have this vernal pool, which is our number 9, of the fairy shrimp that sits over near VDM. We need to make a deposit of roughly $400,000 so that the district is no longer responsible for the vernal pool. It'll move on to another entity. I think it was a part of an original agreement when we acquired the vernal pool during the construction of VDM. This is the 21-22 adopted budget plan that was board approved on December 14th, 2020. So we have the 4 different categories. The total amount anywhere from $4.7 million to $5.2 million. And this is when the COLA was estimated at 0% for 21-22. On the next slide, we have a proposed revised estimated budget reduction plan for 21-22. Same categories of spending freeze, one time of $200,000. eligible unrestricted general fund shifts to restricted funds, estimated at $75,000. And then we have reduced the number 3, apply staffing ratios, reduce staffing due to declining enrollment, and reduce unfunded programs and positions. So positions through natural attrition or reductions to programs, anywhere from $1 to $1.5 million. The original plan indicated $4 million, and it's now been reduced to $1.1 million to $1.5 million. And this is just to address the deficit spending in the out years, beginning in 22, 23. And then we have number 4, which we have applied the partial amount of the new one-time federal stimulus funds, anywhere from $1 to $2 million of the $4.69 million of ESSER number 2. So we will take to the board on February 11th a revised estimated budget reduction plan for 21-22. This chart shows the average reserve levels statewide. So for elementary school districts like ours, the average is 20.47%, and we are at 3% at approximately $1.85 million. It indicates almost all school types were at the percentage of reserves recommended by the Government Finance Officers Association of 17% or 2 months of expenditures. So the budget development timeline. So today we have our governor's state proposal budget. We'll also pull up our seniority list. In February, we'll bring to the board layoff resolution part 1 for certificated, board workshop in February, our district audit, and the 21-22 estimated revised budget reduction plan will be presented to the board. And then March, classified layoff resolution part 1, certificated layoff resolution part 2, and then the second interim report. In April, classified layoff resolution part 2, possible resolution, and the possible final certificated layoff notice. And then in May, we have our Lcap annual review public hearing and the governor's May revise. And then June, we have our public hearing for our 21-22 proposed budget and Lcap. And 21-22 adopted budget and a presentation from our Lcap DBAC committee. And then the adopted budget's due to the county in July. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Marilyn. Any questions,
You're welcome.
anyone? Mr. Lopez, Mr. Gourmilan, Mrs. Lopez?
No questions on my part, Mr. Martinez, but thank you, Marilyn, for that thorough
You're
presentation.
welcome.
I do have a question, Marilyn, not
Okay.
necessarily a question, but a comment, particularly going back to your estimation, estimated amount for the federal side. If we can go back to that slide.
Okay.
Obviously, you can't come to conclusions right now because nothing has been passed, but at least from what I'm hearing from the federal side now with President Biden is that there is a proposal of 1.9 of another stimulus package of $1.9 trillion. And from what they've stated, 130 million is going to go to K-12 education. Oh, excuse me, 130 billion is going to go to K-12 education stabilization.
Okay.
And based on those numbers and what I've been told is that essentially it's 10 times the amount that we got from the CARES packet, which could be, my guess, around 10 to 11 million from our end. In addition to that, I'm also hearing that included in that package is $50 billion for testing and contact tracing, which is independent of that. And then an additional $350 billion for state funding, which California is estimated to get around 35 billion, which
35.
ultimately, based on that, and again, it's still a proposal.
Mhm.
One thing I can say is that now with the majority, with the Democratic president, a majority, Democrats having a majority in both the Senate and Congress, and also the fact that education in and of itself is non-controversial when it comes to funding for the most part, I do believe those numbers should be accurate. So just to keep it in your radar, I know that obviously right now things are still very new, but that should be happening, at least from what I'm hearing, within the next couple of months.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez.
And the reason I say that, at least from my end of it, I want to avoid layoffs as much as possible. And ultimately, when it comes down to what's important, we want to make sure that our staff is intact, particularly that you have a pandemic and possibly a recession within the next couple of years. And ultimately, this is no time for any of our staff members to be unemployed. So at least from my end, and I speak for myself as one board member, the priority should always be making sure our people are intact, and more importantly, that we are able to use these funds to open our schools safely. And I emphasize the word safely.
Mhm.
That's all
Yeah.
my comment.
If we can go back to that multi-year projection of 4 years. Let's look at that. Right there. Oops. Thank you, Mr. Ortega. Oh, no, one more. To the right. There we go. Yeah, so using those numbers, Mr. President, and I'm also hearing that another round of federal stimulus funds is the goal of our newly elected president. That, you know, when we look across the revenue line here, that what's happening is that revenue, these one-time dollars of federal stimulus dollars, CARES Act dollars, and then the new federal stimulus are now embedded in this revenue line of 2020, 2021, and 21-22. So current year at 63.1 million, and then next year at 61.9 million. And then what we see is this drop off of revenues in 22-23, because it drops from that 61.9 million down to 56.9 million. And the drop is because the federal stimulus funds are one time only, and they're not rolling year over year. So that's where I think the dilemma will be for all districts in the state of California, is that the federal stimulus funds are one time. With the numbers you just shared for the next round, hopefully, of federal stimulus funds, the question for our district will be, how big will the drop be in revenues between 21-22 and 22-23? Because it would push into those two fiscal years, hopefully. Miss Marilyn, did I get that right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
And the timeline to spend the funds as well. Like when will it be expired? When would we have to spend it by?
And you know, those are all questions that I'm assuming they're going to come up with the details once they do it. But I just wanted to make sure that you're aware of it, because I think the most important part is knowing what could be coming down the line. And I wouldn't say this if I didn't think it would pass. I'll be honest with you. If it was last year, then I would say no way. But now things are a little bit better. And I can also tell you that, at least from what I've heard too, the president actually mentioned that proposal that I just said was just the first one, that he's thinking of two, at least. That's according to him, okay? So I don't know how that's going to play out, but just for us to keep in mind.
Thank you so much, Mr. President.
Any other questions?
Perfect. Thank you so much,
Thank
Marilyn.
you. Thank you, Mr. Martinez.
Okay, everyone. So we're going to go on to our second report presentation. This one is going to be the California Safe Schools for All plans. We're going to have Dr. Farkas making this presentation.
Okay, thank you. And good evening, President Martinez, members of the governing board, Superintendent Potter, and everyone out there listening in our community safely tonight. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for the opportunity to present this new plan. And I also want to say this presentation picks up where Ms. Adriansen's presentation left off when we talk about the plan. So it also has a few positive examples of some good teamwork going on behind the scenes. So I'm looking forward to highlighting that. The first slide is an overview of the governor's plan and the foundation, and we've heard this word and we use this word every day. The foundation of the plan is safety, making sure we're opening up our schools with a safe, systematic approach. There's evidence with multiple studies now basically across the world that if you do things right with opening schools, you can open them very safely. And if the precautions are in place, the students can come back in a systematic fashion. The governor's plan, like Ms. Adriansen said, it's TK through 2, with the exception of the case rate opening in February. So obviously you wouldn't open a school if the case rate was high, and that's also on this slide as well. The phase-in approach would be grades 3 through 6, opening after that around March 15th. The utilization of the distance learning program would still be available for any students and families that wanted to stay on distance learning. HR has done a fantastic job of organizing staffing and working with our SYEA for staffing as well. So we would only open based on this plan if the county case rate was below 25 to 100,000. The county has been hovering in the 60s all through January, and we monitor our 2 zip codes for San Ysidro, which are even higher, every single week to make sure we're getting the right information and data from our zip codes in our county. The purple tier, as we know we're in right now, allows for specialized cohorts, small groups to open during the purple tier. It doesn't really, it's not really part of this plan, but it is still part of the tiered approach where you could bring in students from highest need into the school, but that is an enrollment that's lower than, much lower than 25% enrollment. And then finally, the plan is built on 4 pillars, and we'll get into that in a second. The 4 pillars approach is kind of the frame of the plan. We'll talk about each pillar, especially pillar number 2 that has a lot to it. And like Ms. Adriansen also said, the plan must be submitted by February 1st. So we're working on very short time, and we're seeing a lot of teamwork trying to get it together. If you don't apply, then you don't qualify. We all obviously know we want to at least apply and follow the protocol. So the next slide will take us to funding. Funding is represented in pillar 1. And as we heard, funding is up to $2 billion set into the governor's plan, and also up to $450 per student if you apply and you're approved for the February 1st submission. And then also the funding based on the plan isn't released until the schools are actually open. So that obviously takes into effect the case rates of the county. Pillar number 2 on the next slide is the big one. This is the safety and mitigation. As you know, we've worked on this even through our summer and spring and distance learning. The safety and mitigation of our staff and our students, especially lately in the fall, it's been the staff, and as students would be phased back in, it would continue on to our students. Testing on a weekly basis under certain purple tier the deep purple tier, but also continuing testing every other week for students and staff, even when we're in the red tier. So testing will be a key foundation of the plan. We're still working on the logistics, but we've made some progress, and we're studying up on how we would be able to expedite and logistically organize a very strong approach to testing our students and our staff. And this is an opportunity for me to just say what an incredible job the San Ysidro school staff, the whole district staff, every single person has done a fantastic job of seeking out testing and then submitting their proof of testing so that they can show and prove that they're negative before they're around others at work. We're trying to minimize how much we have on-campus work going on, but I just want to say thank you to everyone out there for taking testing seriously and doing a good job with that. And hopefully it'll get easier and easier as we get into the late winter and early spring. The PPE is also a big, as we hear every day, it's also a big, a very important precaution. We've issued PPE to staff, but there's another element of PPE in the governor's plan, which is all staff will have the opportunity to receive surgical grade masks for extra protection instead of face covering. Contact tracing, we've been working on contact tracing, and again, both unions have done a fantastic job of working with us so we can keep all of our staff safe when we do have a positive case. I want to thank everyone for that. And the contact tracing will continue in the governor's plan with a new portal that will be set up to improve just the collaboration and the speed of it when it comes to connecting with our county officials. Instead of a phone call or a email, a document, it's now going to be part of a portal system they're going to upgrade. And then finally, we heard our superintendent, Dr. Potter, speak of this fantastic news. Not only are vaccination super hubs starting, but we also had many. Now we're getting closer. We're heading towards a double digit. Right now, it's getting into the high single digits of how many staff members in our health categories have tested, or I'm sorry, have vaccinated. So they're reporting their experiences, and they're doing a great job of getting out there and getting vaccinated when they're eligible. And I'm really proud to say that under this this new vaccinate all 58. So it makes sense that it's a nice initiative for all 58 counties, and we know we're working fast and hard to get everyone vaccinated. That is pillar number 2. Pillar number 3, it gets a little bit easier to understand compared to pillar 2. Pillar 3 is oversight and assistance in the plan, and that is a team is being assembled to support implementation at all the districts in the state. And then the team's led by experts. They'll also be providing webinars, technical assistance, and trainings as schools get closer to reopening. And then finally, pillar number 4 is the transparency and accountability. That is a state dashboard where the public can view and see the funding and the data behind the school districts when it comes to COVID. Also, any hotlines for concern. The hotline could be used for call-in and information. And then this pillar also has assistance and accountability requirements. So basically, if you need help, you can get it through this this pillar, this system of support, but it's also holding people accountable for safety. So if there's something going on, they can also make sure that districts are following what they say they're following, which is a good thing for everyone. That takes me to the next slide, which is our summary. And the summary is basically the plan is to minimize transmissions. We want to make sure that at school, that's going to be one of the safer places you could go besides your home. You go from home to school and you're safe. There's no, it's very minimal chance of transmission. And that takes a lot of time, effort, and organization. Returning to in-person instruction is the key, but safely and systematically. And then funding to assist all any learning loss, which we know could be out there and is out there when it comes to how much our kiddos have been at home with the computers. Many teachers would say it would be a lot easier to help them if they were in the classroom. So obviously safety first, and then also mitigating any learning loss we can. And then finally, the grants are for in-person support. So the money is trying to push and back safely the in-person learning. And then it just gives you a little list of some examples of how funds could be used under the governor's plan. Dr. Potter and a few people tonight have mentioned testing. That's very important. Placing some funding to make sure our staff and students are getting tested. Increasing and improving PPE, even though we've done a fantastic job to make sure we have inventory of PPE and it's the good stuff and it's safe. Ventilation's been upgraded in our schools with Mr. Acevedo and his team, keeping an eye on our air systems, which is, as we know, very important. Salaries to support in-person support and learning loss. And then finally, that piece that we hear about and that we see and we want to make sure we get our hands on is helping our students and our staff through any social and mental health concerns and support. And then finally, towards the end here, we have a timeline. The timeline's really tight. It's cut and dry, I guess, when it comes to what needs to be done, but the time keeps ticking, so we move as fast as we can with the little time we have. I'd like to celebrate already that we, under that first time frame, we've already successfully organized the MOU, at least the process of it and the communication of it with our CSEA. Fantastic job of collaborating and really taking our time to make sure we have a good look at what needs to be done and how we're going to do it together. And then tomorrow we'll be meeting with our SYEA teachers to organize and to look at the MOU process with the plan as well. So that's exciting and a good job for everybody in a short amount of time. Then we'll have our special board meeting next week to take a good look at this, what's going to be called the CSP. And it'll be submitted then to the CDE, a lot of acronyms I know. And then February 1st, we'll have our deadline, as we know, to submit. And then finally, it moves on to the state level. And then again, schools may open for TK to grade 2 if the case rate takes a significant decline by February, which we'd love to see, but it's going to take a lot of effort and a lot of time. So that's the timeline. And then the CPP I mentioned, another strange acronym. It stands for COVID Prevention Plan, and it's through Cal OSHA and all the requirements with safety. This is part of the what has to be submitted. It's the real meat of the whole application process, the plan. It has many categories, but you can see the list of them on the slide. Safe work areas when it comes to hazards, making sure that everything's set up right. And if there is something, it gets fixed immediately and effectively. Investigation and responding, that comes to working together to contact trace to make sure if someone does test positive, that we make sure that we've got everyone covered and protected and quarantined. Communication, being as transparent as possible, everything we can, but still protecting privacy rights. So when we send information out, everybody knows what's going on and can be very informed. And then the training that goes with PPE, and most importantly now on-site procedures that'll have to be taught to kindergartners all the way up to our staff. Reporting to the county, that's been going well, but everyone's busy and inundated with calls. So making sure that that's a expedited and easy procedure. That'll be through that portal. And then returning to work criteria. How do we make sure that we're quarantining and everyone understands when they need to quarantine? Hopefully by the time we get to opening up our schools and our case rates are lower, we won't have those as many, hopefully, that's for sure. And then finally, testing, the testing plan. How are we going to move forward on keeping our outstanding job going for our staff, and then moving it on to students when it comes to testing. And that's my presentation on the governor's plan and everything that's going to go in behind it. Again, this will be something that comes to the special board meeting next week. Questions?
Thank you, Dr. Farkas. Any questions? I do have a comment, Dr. Farkas, particularly the points that I raised earlier related to that this is essentially still based on the governor's proposal. Right. And ultimately, what's going to matter is ultimately what the state negotiates with the governor with related to reopening the schools. Even
Correct.
saying that, based off of the numbers from the county, and you know, this is not just San Ysidro, this is just the county alone. It's very unlikely that we'll be able to open schools based off of those numbers, let alone San Ysidro zip code numbers. So just keep that in mind. I'm glad that we're taking a proactive approach on this. I think more importantly, I just want to congratulate you, because I think ultimately, given the short notice and the amount of work that you put into it, as well as staff, and you know, with both CSEA and SYA working together, I just want to applaud you on that. So I just want to, you know, just comment on that. Keep in mind what the actual plan is related to the budget hearings, because I think that's going to be important with the state and what they decide on how they're going to modify the governor's proposal.
Thank you, President Martinez. If I listed everyone that's been involved with this whole process and safety, it would be a longer list than my presentation lasted. So I want to thank everybody for the teamwork and working together, because it's easy to point fingers in this crazy time, but San Ysidro has really proved how you make it through the storm, as you guys just had said earlier, how you make it through the storm together, and that's how you do it. So thank you.
A district of action.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I have a quick comment. Dr. Farkas, great presentation. Thank you so much. And thank you to you and the team for putting this together, and everybody working, you know, so quickly to make it happen. I'm going to piggyback on Mr. Martinez's comments and just go back to what I said earlier. That's why vaccines are so important, and getting everybody vaccinated. Obviously, it all depends on availability. So we need to talk to our elected officials and try to get them to hurry up and get us a new, you know, center down here in 92173, because I think that would make a big difference as well in getting our schools open. Just looking at this and looking at the whole situation, just so that, I guess, in terms of my perspective, it's going to be a slow and steady transition into opening, and it's not going to be overnight. So that's something that we all need to understand, but we need to keep working together and attacking this problem from every angle with this plan, with talking to our elected officials, talking to our own, our own district, people in our own district. We need to all continue working, but it's really a heavy lift and a big push from everybody to try to get our schools open. And I appreciate you and the team for working hard on this. And let's just keep this. I mean, it does make me feel very hopeful that we will be able to open soon, but there's still a lot of work to do. And I think, we need to work on every angle so that we can get our schools open. So I can't wait till our students are in our schools, talking to each other, having fun, learning. And I can't wait to go visit classrooms and do everything that we used to do, but we need to really work on this and attack this from every angle. But thank you, Dr. Farkas.
Any other comments? Mr. Lopez, Mrs. Lopez?
Not for me, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Farkas.
Mrs. Lopez? Okay, hearing none, we're going to move on. Thank you so much, Dr. Farkas. We're going to go to 11.3, which is our update on Lcap federal addendum, and Cynthia Gonzalez is going to be giving this presentation.
Good evening, Board President Martinez, members of the board, Dr. Potter, cabinet, and members of the community. Tonight, I'm here to give you an update on the Lcap federal addendum. So just to start you with the purpose of the addendum, the purpose of the addendum is to supplement the Lcap funding from LCFF and to ensure that we have an alignment with the Every Student Succeeds Act in our district plan. So the CDE emphasizes that the Lcap federal addendum should not drive the Lcap development, that these funds are supplemental to the state funds, and as such, they should supplement the Lcap. LEAs are encouraged to integrate their ESSA funds into the Lcap development as much as possible to promote strategic planning, but this is not a requirement. This has always been the way that we have done it. As all of you know, this has not been a usual year. Typically, this addendum gets reviewed and updated along with the Lcap prior to the school year starting, but because we we're not required due to COVID-19 to do a new Lcap this year. That's the reason why we're bringing you an update mid-year, just to let you know, again, what's going on with this spending and how we've aligned the spending to our needs in the district. So the first piece of the Lcap federal addendum is Title I, Part A, which is intended to improve basic programs operated by state and local agencies. So the elements that we're required to have as part of Title I, Part A include educator equity, family engagement, either school-wide programs or targeted support programs, homeless children and foster youth services, and services to support student transitions. So in our district, we have equitable placement of students with new and experienced teachers. We have that balance throughout the district. We also have parent workshops to encourage family engagement, both at the district and site levels. We run school-wide programs at all of our schools, and that's due to the high percentage of students who are socioeconomically disadvantaged that we serve in our district. We use data to drive the interventions and supports to support these students to be successful academically. And then, as you know, we have for our homeless and foster youth, a Family First program that is coordinated by our Student Family Services Manager. In terms of transitions for our students at every level, from preschool to kinder, then again from elementary to middle school and middle school to high school, our students are able to participate in an orientation and visit to the next school that they will be moving on to. And for our students who have an IEP, we also are careful to coordinate with our special ed department transition services for their students, so that the case manager for all of those IEPs can work with the case manager at the next school to have a seamless transition of those services from school to school. The next piece of the federal addendum is Title II, Part A, and this is for supporting effective instruction. The elements that we are required for Title II, Part A include professional development and growth and improvement, data and ongoing consultation to support a continuous improvement model. So in our district, for professional development, we work with professional development at all levels of instruction. So our administrators have received professional development both from the San Diego County Office of Education, the Association of California Administrators, and the National Center for Urban School Transformation. We are also obligated to share how we support our teachers who are new to the profession. The California Induction program, which is currently formerly known as BITSA. We do not have an in-house program, but we do refer our teachers to the San Diego County Office of Education to use their program, or they can also use a program through the local university where they may have gotten their degree. Internally, when we do have new teachers, which we don't have any this year, we do have an internal support program called the New Teacher Academy, where teachers are given PD and coaching support from our resource teachers throughout their first year that they spend with us. In addition to that, we do provide professional development for instructional aides, both for the aides as they are hired and then on an ongoing basis as needed. In order to fulfill that requirement of data and ongoing support, we have a 4 to 6 week assessment and data cycle to inform student achievement and to have instructional discussions using that data to drive support and interventions to help all of our students meet their academic needs and growth. The next title program is Title III, Part A. This is for language instruction for English learners and immigrant students. The elements of Title III, Part A that we're required include professional development, programs and activities, and English proficiency and academic achievement. So in the district, we do have professional development. These needs for professional development are driven both by data and needs assessments that we conduct with our teachers and through the school sites. We monitor the professional development implementation through data as a growth model, so that if we see growth with the data for the professional development, then we know that that's working. If not, we know that we need to try to provide additional support. For programs and activities, we have this year incorporated a lot of support for transition to distance learning. This has been a big area to kind of focus on this year. We also have done support for Imagine Learning and Achieve 3000 to specifically support additional instruction for our English learners using those programs, as well as having purchased supplemental materials and used professional development to help teachers use those supplemental materials. And then also to highlight, our Project Lead the Way instruction does provide integrated ELD all throughout the day. So it provides language supports to students through that science and PE instruction. And then lastly, the English proficiency and academic achievement. Again, we use our data reflection sessions to really look at the student groups, both our English learners, our long-term English learners who have been with us for more than 5 years, and our students who have been reclassified to English proficient to continue to be able to observe their instructional needs through data and support them as that data shows us that we need to do that. And we construct monitoring and intervention plans, both with the use of data, as well as through discussions with teachers in meetings that they have with principals on a 4 to 6 week cycle. The state assessment data is also used to analyze year-to-year growth of students, as the expectation is that students will be able to show on state assessment that they have improved 1 year and 1 band in language achievement. And the last piece of our title program is Title IV Part A. This portion is for student support and academic enrichment. So the elements of Title IV Part A include STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math, and access to a well-rounded education. In the district, we do have STEM instruction, both through our elementary school sci-fi program and our middle school Project Lead the Way program. And then we have access to a well-rounded education, where we try to include that as part of our after-school program through Pathways, and our summer program, which includes both STEM and enrichment activities for our students. And then that was the last of the title programs for the federal addendum. Are there any questions?
Thank you so much, Cynthia. Any questions, team?
Welcome.
Comments? Okay, hearing none, I just want to thank you, Cynthia. Very, very well done.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to 11.4. That's our 4th presentation tonight. It's going to be special education requirements, West Ed Special Education Audit Review and Update from Mr. Oscar Madera.
Good evening, Board President, members of the board, Dr. Potter, Cabinet, and community members. Next slide. So here's an overview of what we're going to be talking about today, which is the current legal requirements, the special education caseload and the pending assessments that we currently have, the safety protocols for in-person assessment, and introduce the West Ed audit that we're currently working on. The U.S. Department of Education requirements, special education legal timelines and requirements have not been waived due to COVID. So we continue to have the same timelines for initials, triennials, and any additional assessments. Any IEP meetings, the annual meetings, which is we meet with parents and the students every year. Any triennial reevaluations for special education, and any amendments throughout the year. And also Part C to Part B, and these are the students that are transferring from either Hope Infant Program or San Diego Regional Center coming into the district as preschoolers with special needs. School districts are required to provide access to the maximum extent possible when it comes to specialized academic instruction, which is basically teacher working on specific goals, any related services that can range from speech and language services to occupational therapy, any accommodations and modifications that the students require in order to access their education. Senate Bill 98 was created by our governor, and it added an emergency distance learning component to all IEPs. So this is an additional component of the IEP document that is added based on the current situation. And the emergency distance learning component is for emergency conditions where education, instruction, or services cannot be provided in person more than 10 days. So this emergency form includes information regarding special education and related services, any supplementary aids or services that the student requires, any transition services from one program to another, or even extended school year services for students. This is our current special education information when it comes to current students that we have in the district that receive special education support. I divided them up based on either program or services that they're currently receiving. It ranges from preschool students, which, for example, the walk-ins are students that just come in for speech and language services, but they're not necessarily in a special day classroom or have a special education teacher, to those students that require support from educationally related mental health services. We currently have approximately 642 active IEPs in the district. So our current standing, we know that we still are currently working on any annual IEPs that are coming up. So these IEPs, we're holding them via Google Meets, via phone calls, whatever works best for the parents in order to accommodate the current situation. We also have open assessments, either that were open before school closures, or even other recommendations that were made during the school closures. Transition assessments, these are the preschoolers that are transferring into kindergarten by law. We're supposed to do an assessment for those students moving into kinder. And post-school closures, we've had some initial assessment requests coming in and additional recommendations for looking into support services that the students might require in order to make academic gains, for example, educationally related mental health or specialized support as well. And triennials, as I had mentioned before, we do a reevaluation every 3 years to determine if the students still require special education support in order to make those academic gains. Okay, so the special education assessments, we developed an assessment, we didn't, but this is the assessment model that we've been following. Number one would be the review of records, where we look at previous information. Either if the student has been with us for quite a while, we can review previous data in order to determine if the student continues to qualify for special education services, or if there's any new information from medical records, or even the cumulative file, or even work samples, whatever it might be, that can help us make a statement where the student is determined to need that support. We also have the in-person live assessment, where all in-person evaluators are screened using the district form. This is the form that our human resources department use. Everyone that comes in and does the live assessments has access to the PPE, the masks, the face shields, the plexiglass dividers, gloves, and disinfecting wipes, and also the no contact temperature scanner kiosks that are located in every school site. Most of the assessments that require live administration would be the cognitive assessments, which include the visual motor, auditory, memory, and visual processing. Most of these have not been proven to be valid for virtual administration. That's why we would have to administer them live. And additionally, doing interviews, doing observations during distance learning, and any other components that we can do virtually, then we move forward and do those virtually before moving into the live component of the assessment. We develop an assessment consent and safety protocol forms for those members that are coming in doing live assessments. One of the first one would be the assessment consent form where the parents or guardians acknowledge consent to the student coming in to be evaluated, and a parent agrees to be accessible in case of an emergency or stay within the vicinity of the school site. Assessment COVID checklist. Assessor screens student and family in regards to symptoms related to COVID-19, and information that is gathered is confidential. It's not something that is shared with anybody else. And we determine if it's safe enough to conduct the live assessment on that date. We created some live assessment teams for those members that volunteer to complete assessments. The live assessment teams included special education teachers, speech and language therapists, school psychologists, lead school psychologists, adaptive physical education teacher, occupational therapists, and physical therapists. An hourly stipend for performing the live assessments on site was offered to the following SYEA unit members: special education teachers, school psychologists, speech and language therapists, adaptive physical education teacher, and the school social worker. Agency staff were utilized to complete the assessment teams when needed. Here are some of the outcomes. 5 schools participated in the live assessment process in our district. 30 live assessments were completed during the months of October to December. Full evaluations looking into academic and cognitive and adaptive skills, and also speech-only evaluations. Participants follows the safety protocols, and we did not luckily have any positive cases as a result of these assessments being conducted live. Here's just a snapshot of what the WES audit is and what they're currently working with us. WES Ed is an improving learning and healthy development and equity in schools and communities. So that's their main focus. So what they're going to be doing is that they're going to be gathering data around our students that receive special education services and making recommendations in certain areas of focus and giving us additional guidance into how to follow through with some of the what the recommendations that they'll be making. The process does include 3 tasks. One of them would be review and analyze the district and state data related to the outcomes of students with disabilities, and select a comparison with districts. So one of the focus that Ms. Gonzalez and I did, and we met with WES Ed, and we were very adamant that we needed to be compared to districts that are very similar to ours. So it was a fair comparison. Task 2 is the collection and analysis of data from focus groups, interviews, surveys from the district and stakeholders. WES Ed has already conducted interviews with our special education teachers. They just interviewed our administrators last week, and we're moving forward with our paraprofessionals. And I believe we also completed our general education teachers as well. We're also going to be doing a parent panel as part of the process. Task 3 would be summarizing the findings and making recommendation. We'll probably be presenting the results to the board at one of the board meetings coming up. And the timeline, we're looking into completing this process in June of 2021. Obviously, if we get done before, then we'll move forward with that as well. Any questions?
Thank you, Oscar. Any questions, everyone? No? Great job. Excellent. You know, and I just want to applaud you for keeping everybody safe. I mean, the fact is you're doing an excellent job. I think we all can say that. And you're keeping everyone safe, which is really the priority. So I just want to thank you and your team, Oscar. Done a great job.
Thank you.
I also wanted to comment something. Mr. Madera, I have a granddaughter that had speech and hearing test given to her, and I accompanied her. I mean, I waited outside, but I saw how she had to wear a mask, and she knew that she couldn't take it off. But I want to applaud you and your staff, because children at that age sometimes don't understand, and I know it's hard for them. And my granddaughter is very moving. She likes to talk. She likes to. So I told her, you have to pay attention and pay attention and be careful. Don't want you to go anywhere. You go with the teacher and that with your specialist. But I wanted to commend your staff, because she felt very comfortable, and she came out. She was happy, and she told me that she knew what the teacher what the specialist was gonna ask her. And I looked at her, yeah. She says, because when I talk to her, when I'm on the computer, and she talks to me and gives me little tests to do, and I answer them, and she makes me feel good. And I told her, that's good. It's real important. She said, yeah. And I put the sanitizer before and afterwards where she sat me down. But I think it's real important, because I thought, kids sometimes are scared because they go by themselves inside and have to sit with in person. And I think that it's very important. I think that your staff and you do such a great job that I'm really, really honored to say that your department has always worked very hard. And I see them when they're out and about, and I see them sometimes when I just pass by. I don't go in at all, but just pass by in my car, and I see, oh, they're working on this or that. And I think that's real important, because our kids, I think, need the help in every way they can, even if it's just a test or it's just talking with them. But I want to commend you on it. I know it's not easy, especially now, and just give you a heads up that I think that you'll come out very good on the audit, because you guys are always also well informed and have that heart in education, which is very important for our kids, especially these children that sometimes lack a lot of confidence and love. And I think that you all work together very hard, and I see it, and I commend you for it. So thank you for everything your staff and you do for all our kids. I think I'm honored to say that I know who Oscar Madera is. So thank you, Oscar. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Irene. Any more comments, Mr. Gurmilan, Mr. Lopez? Okay. Ooh, I put myself on mute. Hearing no more comments, I'm gonna move on to general administration. So we're at 12:01 minutes. I'd like to get a motion to approve the minutes of the organizational meeting of December 14, 2020, and minutes of the special board meeting of December 1st, 2020.
So move.
So moved by
I'll
Mr.
second it.
Gurmilan, and a second by Ms. Lopez. Do we have any comments, questions, thoughts? Okay, hearing none. Dr. Potter, can you lead us in the roll call vote, please?
Calling for the roll call vote for agenda item 12.1, Board Member Irene Lopez.
Yes.
Board Member Humberto Gurmilan.
Aye.
Board Vice President Rudy Lopez.
Aye.
And Board President Antonio Martinez.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote passes 4-0.
Thank you, Dr. Potter. We're going to move on to 12.2, which is adopt resolution number 2021-0019, amending the district's conflict of interest code. Do we have a motion to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
I'd make a motion.
Okay, so I heard Mr. Lopez first, and then as the motion, and then Mrs. Lopez, I heard as the second. Discussion? Okay, hearing none. Dr. Potter, can you lead us in a roll call vote, please?
Calling for the roll call vote for agenda item 12.2, Board Member Irene Lopez.
Yes.
Board Member Humberto Gurmilan.
Aye.
Board Vice President Rudy Lopez.
Aye.
Board President Antonio Martinez.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote passes 4-0.
Thank you, Dr. Potter. We're going to move on to 12.3, which is updated substitute salary schedule. Do I have a motion to approve the updated salary schedule?
Make a motion.
Okay, motion by Irene. Mrs. Lopez.
Second.
Second by Mr. Lopez. Discussion? Hearing none. Dr. Potter, can you lead us in a roll call vote, please?
Calling for the roll call vote of agenda item 12.3. Board Member Irene Lopez.
Yes.
Board Member Humberto Gurmilan.
Aye.
Board Vice President Rudy Lopez.
Aye.
And Board President Antonio Martinez.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote passes 4-0.
Thank you, Dr. Potter. And just a reminder to everyone that we have tabled 12.4, 12.5, 12.6, and 12.7, which leads us to the number 13 in our consent calendar. Do I have a motion to, now, before I do this, let me read it. All items appearing are adopted in one single motion or consent calendar. There will be no discussion of these items prior to consideration of the motion unless a member of the board or the superintendent requests that any such item be removed from the consent calendar and voted on separately. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Lopez, second by Mr. Gurmilan. Do we have any polls? Okay. Hearing none, Dr. Potter, can you lead us in a roll call vote, please?
Calling for the roll call vote for agenda item 13. Board Member Irene Lopez.
Yes.
Board Member Humberto Gurmilan.
Aye.
Board Vice President Rudy Lopez.
Aye.
Board President Antonio Martinez.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote passes 4-0.
Thank you, Dr. Potter. So we're going to move on to adjournment, if I'm not mistaken. And also just to clarify, everyone, that we initially, when we published the agenda, we had originally have scheduled a San Ysidro Schools Public Finance Corporation a regular meeting at the conclusion of this meeting, but that meeting, however, has been canceled. Obviously, we'll keep you posted on when that will be, when we'll have that. But as of now, I'd like to take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Lopez, second by Mr. Gurmilan. Any other thoughts, questions, concerns? Okay, Dr. Potter, can you lead us in a roll call vote to adjourn?
Calling for the roll call vote for agenda item number 14, adjournment. Board Member Irene Lopez.
Yes.
Board Member Humberto Gurmilan.
Aye.
Board Vice President Rudy Lopez.
Aye.
And Board President Antonio Martinez.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote passes 4-0.
Thank you. And we, as of now, we're going to be adjourning our meeting at 7:51 p.m. Really thank all of you for joining us today. Board members, team members, we did well. Let's keep going. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Potter.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Mr. President.
Good night.
Night.
Good night, everybody.
Great job. 7:51. Good job. Thank you so
Nice.
much, everyone.